do we really need to go back in WWE history? Jerry the King Lawler, we still celebrate these people.
I don't celebrate Jerry the King Lawler. I'm throwing that out there.
I'm just saying in
general.
general.
I don't want to be put into that. Jerry's a little cringe for me personally. Sometimes I hear him announce, I'm like, I feel like I got to take a shower afterwards. They've definitely give people second chances. Tim Allen, Robin Williams after doing cocaine, but cocaine's definitely a lot different than domestic violence. Recently, we've seen another member of TNA walk through the quote-unquote forbidden door, sorry, Tony Khan, into NXT, and that is Moose, who has immediately made an impact, no pun intended, in NXT. Do you feel like with Moose showing up and Tessa Blanchard coming back to TNA, that we could see either Moose or Tessa on a WWE roster at some point in the near future?
I think anything is possible. It's wrestling, right? So you really can never say never when it comes to professional wrestling. Tessa just has star all over her, and she always has. Despite the issues that she had with other female wrestlers, she has everything that you want in a female talent. I could see her coming over. I mean, if CM Punk can come back, Tessa can definitely come back. Yeah. Now Moose, I like Moose. And it felt like a Ring of Honor talent that would have come over years ago, but it never really panned out. And now that he's getting the chance to come over to NXT, and if he has a really good match with Moose, I think that kid, did I say Moose facing Moose?
Yeah, you did. It's okay.
All right. If he has a really good match with Obafemi, I think he could really turn heads, and he may be the next bigger TNA name to come over to NXT. I can see both of them moving over under the right circumstances.
The question's not about anything to do with wrestling. Like their in-ring ability, them as characters, that's never really been the issue. It's always as they say in sports, the off-the-field stuff. So it's just the real question is WWE going to want to deal with the backlash of Moose and his criminal record, as well as Tessa and her, a lot of people will say she's a, lack of a better word here, but a potential locker room issue.
When you say Moose's criminal record, are we going back to before he got into wrestling?
Moose had some issues with domestic violence.
Wasn't that before he got into wrestling though?
I mean, whether it is, whether it isn't, that's the main reason why he hasn't really gotten past this point is because of that. Gotten
past what point though?
The point of being in TNA and anything like that. That's the main thing holding Moose back is that issue.
Who told you that?
That's pretty much everything I've read on the internet has been the fact that a lot of people don't want to deal with him because of those issues in the past with domestic violence. Because again, if you're starting a company or have a company like AEW or WWE, it's something else you have to worry about. Are you really going to for example, you look at what's his name? Trevor Bauer.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
But I mean, I knew about his issues, but I've never heard that is the reason that he's never made it out of Impact. I've never heard that before. So I don't know if that's internet smart talk.
I mean, maybe is, all right, well, either way, for me, if I was running a company, it was definitely something I would look at, from a marketing standpoint, from a talent standpoint, Having said that, they still have JD McDonough in the company, and he had some various allegations along those lines as well. So I don't know, but it's definitely something you have to look at when signing a talent. Every person they sign is representing your brand. So are they really going to want that asterisk with it? If I was hiring wrestlers, would be the main thing holding Moose back from joining WWE or AEW would be that personally.
I mean, do we really need to go back in WWE history when it comes to allegations and all this stuff, and how many people on the roster were accused of A, B, or C, and they had they flourished in their careers afterwards.
Right. I mean, dude, look at Jimmy Superfly Snuka is like the main one that comes to mind.
Look at Pat Patterson.
Yeah, no, I get that. Having said that, Che, you know, the internet wasn't a thing back then. A lot of these stuffs were doing terrible things, and the threshold for what was acceptable and okay 30 to 40 years ago is very different than what it is now. It's very different than what it is. I mean,
Jerry the King,
I don't know, man.
Jerry the King Lawler. We still celebrate these people.
I don't celebrate Jerry the King Lawler. I'm throwing that out there.
I'm just saying in general.
I don't want to be put into that. I don't want to be put into
in the wrestling landscape. I mean, we still talk about and celebrate Pat Patterson being the first IC champion and him creating the Rumble. We still call Jerry the King Lawler legendary, and they show him on camera and all this stuff. I mean,
well, don't say we. I'm not in there. Don't say we. WWE does.
We is in the wrestling community. You are part of the wrestling community, so I say we.
Yeah, I'm just saying I don't. You know, to me, like Jerry's a little cringe for me personally. Like that's just my opinion. You know, I'm just sometimes I hear him announce. I'm like, I feel like I got to take a shower afterwards personally. But it's not. You know, I see what you're saying, but the standard that people were held to, even 10 to 15 to 20 years ago, and some of the people you mentioned 40 or 50 years ago is way different now, when everyone's just a Google search away. Mm-hmm. You know, some people, like I remember, you know, some of the stuff with Pat, he had some, not as much as it would have been now, but he definitely had some backlash back then. But look at, you know, a perfect example is Mae Young, and or what's her name? Fabulous Moolah, excuse me. Fabulous Moolah was heavily put in as like a legend. She was in the Attitude Era. They had her on TV. You know, she was talked about as a legend. They had originally the Mae Young Classic was supposed to be the Fabulous Moolah Classic, and it got such backlash, they took it off.
Yeah, but see, you know what? Let's not even get into the idea of social media picking and choosing who they want to go after and who they don't.
I'm not saying picking and choosing. I'm just telling.
That's exactly what happens here.
I'm just telling you that now, because I was going off of what you said about Pat Patterson and other people. I'm just saying they didn't have to deal with the internet. They didn't have to deal with all this information on their phone. Like Jimmy Snuka, after his Dark Side of the Ring, where he allegedly killed that woman, right? Mm-hmm. There wasn't like, you know, some people knew the story, but it wasn't like it was nationally covered comparatively to how it would have been today. It's not like we could go on our phone and look up anyone, you know?
I get it. You're like beating the like dead branch. Like I get it. But
dead branch. Isn't it a dead horse?
The fact is that the internet will go after whatever they feel is important to them at any given time. If it's somebody that they generally like or adore, then they will defend that person to no end. And if it's somebody that they don't like, or somebody that they feel is not talented enough or not good looking enough, then they'll go after that person and, you know, get that person pushed out or canceled or whatever. It's like, who cares? Who cares about the internet? Who cares? I don't.
Well, I don't care necessarily about the internet, but having said that, I do care about a domestic violence charge, not if I'm hiring someone. You know what I mean? Not the best. Because like you said, Tessa Blanchard's someone who you see as star potential, right? You made that pretty clear. You think she has star potential on her. You think that she could do stuff. And I think Tessa's off the field issues are a lot easier for WWE to potentially get through, right? But because that's, you know, and there's a lot of people, when I actually put up the video about Tessa, who hit me up and were like, oh, well, she actually did this when she came to my indie and this, so I believe in and blah, blah, blah. I can't say anything personally. I've never met her. I have no, you know, I didn't even really follow TNA like that at the time, so I can't say anything. But I will say, you know, I think WWE with Moose needs to weigh, like, realistically, how far do you see him going in your company? What's his peak as being in your company? And again, is the juice worth the proverbial squeeze, as they say? Like, do you want to deal? Because to me, like, you know, again, and I'm not co-signing what Tessa did or didn't do or whatever. I'm not saying that, but on paper, the allegations against her are not nearly as bad as domestic violence, which is what's on Moose record. So WWE being a family-related company, are you really going to want to deal with that? Having said that, we are a country that believes in second chances for some. So maybe, this is him getting his second chance and doing the most with it. It's just something I would consider if I was hiring him. I'll tell you that much.
Wrestling is his second chance. He's already, that's been his second chance for the last 10 or 12 years.
I'm just saying, man, to me, it's something you have to take into account when hiring anyone, man. Especially a family-friendly business, quote unquote, like WWE, who is trying to position themselves as the Disney of wrestling. Triple H said that himself. I can't remember, Disney, they've definitely give people second chances in the past, most notably Tim Allen, Robin Williams after doing cocaine, but cocaine's definitely a lot different than domestic violence. So, I'm not opposed to, if they feel like Moose is worth the risk, I have no problem. It's just definitely something I would consider if I was hiring him.